This is the Landmarks Commission meeting for Monday, March 11th, 2019. Start by taking the roll. Susan Light.
Present.
Veronica Corpus-Dax.
Present.
Justin Balsley.
Yo.
Ron Day.
Present.
Ian Griffiths.
Yes.
David Siegel.
Present.
And Paul Mercer present. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any comments, questions, things they want to add to the agenda?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion any nays? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda would be the approval of the minutes from the February 11th, 2019 meeting of the Landmarks Commission. Any comments, questions, things of that nature?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Regular business for tonight's meeting. Certificate of Appropriateness 19-03, consideration with possible action on a request to install a plaque at 114 South Broadway. There is report by staff in the agenda. Jason, do you want to discuss this for us?
Property owner wants to install a sign. Staff recommends approval. Staff suggests that mounting hardware be in way of the mortar between bricks if it's going to be on a brick facade. But this isn't a tough one, folks. I don't have a lot to say.
Where is the sign actually going to be
Yeah.
located on the facade? That's what I didn't see from the rendering.
We have the property owner, Ms. Bosley, present.
Okay.
Perhaps you could open the floor.
So,
Motion open the floor.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
I have not fully decided yet. I'm open to suggestion.
What's the material of the
Just
sign?
metal, just a metal plaque.
Like single-sided, double-sided?
I guess I'm not metal savvy. I don't know the specifics of it
Means
yet.
you can have graphics on one side of it or
No.
both sides sticking out?
So it's
from
going to
the
be
building?
flat on the building?
Correct.
Size?
No larger than a 2x2 is what I think I have in the minutes.
So what we're seeing up on the screen right now, is that just a couple of different examples of what it might look like?
So the bottom right is the one that I would be going with.
Okay. And the intention is that it would be up high on the building, on the brick part of the, above all the glass?
I haven't gotten that far yet. I don't know specifically where I would put it. I feel like if we put it up that high, a 2x2 would seem like, why would you put that up there?
Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of space available otherwise, I mean, but.
So,
I don't think we have enough information to make a determination
No.
if we don't know where the sign's going.
Right.
Are you opposed to it being larger?
It needs to fall within the ordinance. So whatever that would mandate the size, the maximum size it can be.
that
I
would-
guess,
I mean, my question was gonna be, is this discussion, I'm trying to figure out the relevance for this commission
right.
as opposed to the city ordinances that involve signage.
Sure. So for a sign permit, it's required to get a, regardless of if you're in a historic district or not, you need a sign permit. If you are going for a plaque, you do not need a sign permit. A plaque is dictated by the 2x2 with some sort of naming propriety entity on it. So there would not be a sign permit required for this, just the approval of this body because it's a historic building. With that though, you can dictate location or general location as I would recommend, because we don't just want to be giving a free pass on a sign that goes somewhere on the building. You want to have an idea of how it will
Right.
look on the building. A lot of other plaques are either somewhere at the bottom so people can see them as they walk into or past the building. And then the monumental ones that are the ones that are kind of engraved in the stone are usually up top, and those are much larger. But those are not the same as this.
Have you been talking with On Broadway?
I've worked with them closely on everything, aside from this particular project. My initial thought is that it would either be in the center above the main door there, across that brick up top. Is it okay if I go up there and point specifically?
Can you point to it?
Okay. So, up here, or on one of these pillars up the side, or somewhere in here. I don't want it to be a huge, like, oh, look at me, I just want it to be a subtle, nice touch to
What
the
is,
building.
what is right above the front, the center door? What is that right above there? Is that?
What kind of material
Yeah,
is
is it
it?
glass? It's not a window, is it? I mean, is it?
No, that's glass.
It is.
Mhm. Yes.
Well, I would concur what was mentioned before. I'd like to hear more, a definitive plan exactly where.
Okay.
This seems like a pretty easy approval, but would definitely like to see a definitive plan.
Okay, so if I told you right now I was gonna put it above the door, would that help you? Or do you want it in writing and then we'll come back?
Like the size too.
It's got to be.
That should be in the plan.
If it's
It's
2
a
by
2
2,
by
it's
2.
like the plaque thing, right?
Yep.
So it has to be that size. It can't be.
Cannot exceed that.
Cannot exceed that.
If it were to exceed that, then we can't approve it like this. It would have to go as part of the entire sign package for the building.
I'd be comfortable with approving it up above the door. I mean, it's central, it's for the building, it looks, you know, I mean.
If that's what you're requesting, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Any other discussion from the floor? I need a motion.
Motion to close the floor?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So, based on what we just heard, is there a motion to approve or deny the certificate?
I'll make a motion to approve not larger than 2 by 2 above the door.
Second.
Any
Above
other
the
dis-
center door?
Any other
Yeah.
discussion?
It's the center door, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that.
Certainly.
Above the door on the glass or above the door on the,
On the brick,
on the brick above?
yes ma'am.
Either, I'd say would be acceptable either way, I would think. As long as it's centered and above the door somewhere.
So, we're saying here,
Right, that's my understanding.
I
or
was
we're talking about
ref-
up here?
I was referencing the brick,
The brown.
yep, I'm just gonna come up with you. I was referencing this right here, this brick piece right here. I'm sorry, it's metal, it's a big metal slab that goes across here. So it would be right here, not on the glass, on this metal piece.
It won't fit there,
Yeah.
I'm sure. 2 by 2 will be way too big to fit on that.
Yeah, like 2 foot height.
Okay, so if I measured it to fit within that frame, right there, because I don't think it makes sense to put it on the glass. So could we approve it to have within this metal brown slab?
I don't think it's gonna be large enough for what you were trying to accomplish.
No.
Is there a way to do it over the glass somehow? I mean.
That's what I was just saying.
Like
Well,
with
you
some
see in
rails or
offices.
something maybe? that would
Yeah,
stick-
because they do the letters right on the glass.
Or do
Imagine
that
letters.
that on the glass, sure, lettering, that would be, you know, but then it wouldn't be much of a plaque, it would be, you know, more, it would be something else, I guess.
But I'm just thinking about if you wanted to remove it down the line, it might present a problem.
Right. That's true, actually.
So the idea behind the plaque is that it's naming a building, and it's giving some context to the entire building. So
Right.
we wouldn't want it to be something that's easily removable, like a window decal.
Right.
I would question, because of what you just said, Stephanie, would the sign be more prominent if it was hung off the building, perpendicular to the building like the Jake's Pizza sign, but up higher above the center window?
That may exceed the plaque. Let me look up a code real quick.
That might be,
Does it, I don't,
Kinda
yeah,
high,
it's
though.
getting away from a plaque and,
Then it goes more to a
Sign.
commercial sign,
Mm.
so that might be outside of the code. The plaque is intended to be naming the building, on the face of the building,
yeah.
usually flush, and I'm not sure that we dictate that, but I can look it up.
I mean, if it was to fit between the two posts, it's obviously gonna be smaller than 2 by 2. It's just gonna be a name.
Well, that dimension between the two pillars has to be 3 feet, I'm guessing.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
there's a door there, so
Between
it's
the
gotta be
doors.
at least, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
at
okay.
least three.
So,
Height of the
with a
way of
2
the-
by 2 sign, if it were attached on, you know, between those two pillars by some kind of apparatus, would that still be a plaque? Like if it were a metal railing or something that, I
Yeah.
mean, is that?
I would venture to say no, but I can look it up. They shall be placed flat against a building, and they cannot exceed 4 square feet in area.
2 by 2.
Well, flat against it, then attached physically, mounted flush to it, or how flat to the building.
You thought about putting
No
it on
code's gonna
the
get that,
side,
they keep.
side of the building? I mean, it
No,
would-
because there will be future developments on the side
Oh,
of the
sure,
building,
right,
so
right,
this-
that's their building, the condos there. Well, it's 4 square feet, right? So you could do a longer, skinnier sign above the door on that part that you were talking about. You know, you could alter the design a little bit. That would, you know, maybe a possible solution.
Yeah, I think if it were.
So it was 1 by, you know, or 1.5 by, I don't know, I can't do math.
By like about 1 1/4 or something.
Something like that, yeah.
That metal slab is prominent, so I think if it filled that space, that brown space at the top, above center of that middle door, I think it would fulfill what I'm looking to do.
Yeah, and the idea of what a plaque does too.
And I don't have the exact dimensions for that, but it would be less than the requirement.
So could we motion to approve that in some, I don't know. Yeah. Any
What you're
idea?
talking about is putting it on the metal strip, correct?
Yes.
Right, I mean, if that's what we're going to approve, that is what you're gonna be stuck with unless you go back and realize that isn't gonna work. My thought is maybe you ought to go take a look and make sure that is gonna work for you, the dimension, because it is limited,
Sure.
and then we can revisit this.
Yeah.
But it's-
Fine, there's
Well,
no huge rush.
if we were to approve it and it doesn't work,
You can amend the COA.
Okay.
let's just get another.
Have you talked to the sign company?
Not for this one specifically.
Maybe you talk to the sign company first and they could give you some good options.
Whatever you guys are comfortable with.
We want it to be a good choice for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, in any event, it can't exceed the 4 by 4.
So,
or-
just
or-
approve it,
Four
the
square
as long as it
feet,
doesn't-
excuse me.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
So-
Over the center door, maximum 4 square feet.
That's it.
I mean, so, I don't know, what would the hang-up be? Of us approving it, as long as it fits within that realm.
I don't think there is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think-
So are we still on that same motion? It's the
I
same
have a
thing?
motion with the conditions not to exceed 2 by 2 and to be installed above the center doorway.
Yeah. so-
Perfect.
Or make it 4 square feet
Okay.
instead of 2 by
Yeah.
2.
Yeah,
Instead of
right,
go 3
right,
feet long
exactly.
That gives a
by
little
maybe
room for
about
size there.
a foot and a half high.
You know, and I'm looking at a photo, or it's easier in 3 dimensions to see the space we're looking at, but it would seem like the question that you're going to have is how to attach the sign,
Right.
because that's a glass panel above that door. So if there's some sort of framing that goes from column to column,
I wouldn't consider that a plaque sign anymore.
No, so we're talking about, the only thing we were approving is on that metal
Metal.
strip. That, the brown metal strip, we could put that in. Are those, little white stars on the
Yes.
building now? Yeah.
I don't know if you wanna attach it directly to an architectural element like the lintel across the top or the front of capitals of each of those columns. To me, it's just, I'm not sure what it's trying to do.
What if the sign was placed on the, I don't know if that's metal or if it's wood, this piece above the door.
I think it's wood, Paul.
What's that?
I think it's wood, what I
Kinda
can see
looks
on
like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm open to that. I'm completely redoing the facade too, and so that piece might become, aluminum. But I think that would be a good space as well.
I like that better.
Jason, was that part of the initial, because the concept you're looking at has already been approved, the one on the left, was the aluminum part of that?
Yes.
Okay.
It is replacing the wooden window frames with a new baked-on finish metal window frame type thing with doors. The whole ground floor was approved with some restrictions.
So with this, approving this, if it were to be there above that door on the brown carpet you're just pointing out, would that in somehow contradict the other approved business? No, okay.
The historic material that's remaining is the vertical, painted white bits here,
Right.
and the horizontal metal beam, the rosettes on it.
Mm-hmm. Rosettes.
That's what I'm gonna say.
That's why I come to these things, I gotta learn something.
Of the flanged beam across there, which are interestingly not symmetric, which is kind of amazing.
Caught my eye too.
Right, it's,
Yeah.
Looks like I put them on there, actually.
So then the motion would be to, my motion would be to approve it on that area, whatever we want to call that area, above the door. Yes.
The area above the center door.
Below the center
We should
window.
consult our
Yeah.
The
architects, I guess.
upstairs window.
In that
gives you the
space.
whole.
In that space right there, I mean, it kind of goes along with the rest of the names, and it's not out of, doesn't affect any of the historical part of the building. That's my motion.
And what are we calling that metal piece?
Let's consult the architects for that, I guess.
let's see, it's the door head.
Is it
Go ahead,
Header?
transom.
header? Yeah, is that
Such a
oh.
metal beam.
I'll be doing the metal at the top of the
Well, I don't know that, that's
No,
what I'm
we're
asking you.
we're talking about just above the door there.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
would
We
say
thought
that's a
was
transom.
wood.
That's the wood
Could
part,
be just
yeah.
a trim material over the door
So
frame.
directly above the center door, not the metal beam.
Not the,
On the transom.
That is
Transom.
typically where a dressing goes, just so the property owner is aware, there's usually a dressing that is at that part, so
And the
there
rest
might be-
currently.
I like French. Couldn't help it. I already learned too many words, I can't. Gonna-
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second, so I'm going to call a vote. That is unanimously approved.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is consideration with possible action on communication from Alderman Stoyer regarding the status of the certified local government application.
Alderman Sawyer could not be here today. He did his communication last week at the city council meeting with the adoption of the text amendment through Plan Commission for the historic preservation ordinance. We are now able to resubmit our ordinance back to SHPO for consideration for CLG. So we'll be taking care of that this week, and then they take as much time as they take to let us know if we got accepted for that application. So we will send a communication back to him, but if you could vote to receive and place that on file, that would be spectacular.
Make a motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Paragraph E, informational, staff level certificate of appropriateness applications.
We received none.
Item number 2, review city raise and repair orders and demolitions.
There's one raise / something else order for this minimal traditional post-war, probably house, which is in a zoned area for general industrial. So the raise repair order is a bit of a misnomer. It is either a raise order or adapted for use as general industry. It's not clear from the order what exactly is wrong with the house, but, you know, the generic language of unfit for habitation for unknown reasons applies. I see no preservation issues here in raising this house or adapting it to general industrial purposes. But,
I mean, is there somebody living there right now? The driveway seems like it's plowed.
driveway's plowed, nothing shoveled. There's a sign on the door that says, "Thou shalt not be living here for long if you're living here." Nobody came out with a gun when I took the pictures, so, you know,
It's
that's.
always a good start.
I had a close call once, actually. So, I have no recommendations for this group on this, other than to receive and place on file.
Where is?
Where's Thrush Street? Yeah, I was.
It's off of
Velp.
Velp. It's on the west side.
I feel like I should know it.
North of Velp on the west side.
Yeah, so if it's, yeah, that little
Industrial
pocket there, that's
area.
all industrial, commercial,
Yep.
and there's maybe a block long and
Well,
it
there's
dead
this
ends.
bizarre little residential-looking cluster on a dead-end street. And my hunch is that they've all been rezoned general industrial at some point.
Like in the Railway Gardens neighborhood there, kind of?
No.
Yeah. No? Oh.
So this particular house,
There's
as you
an
look at it on the left, is a
Oh,
light
that's not-
industrial
huh.
something or another. And to the right are more houses.
When you go south of Velp, then it's residential.
Oh,
But north of
okay.
Velp, it's always
Oh, okay.
block long.
And so,
commercial
help me
stuff.
understand, so how this order was put together?
Our inspection department does that. So we receive all raise repair orders that the city does, just to make sure there is no historical integrity to the properties. So you'll see a lot of them that aren't anywhere close to historic, something similar to this. But our inspection department is the owner of that raise repair order.
So I guess if it's not historic, why does it come before us?
We are charged with reviewing them to make sure that we are not ruining any historical integrity within the city.
Just in case something slips through.
Fail safe.
There are very few times that happens, but there are a couple that we catch and we go, oh, that's original siding, we should ask the property owner to keep that. Some of them are close enough to a district that we have an intrinsic interest in keeping those things preserved, but most of them are just raised repairers that come through our inspection team that we just review to make sure that nothing is slipping through the cracks.
Okay. So then, like a raise and repair order waits basically that the commission needs before it gets enacted.
I think a raise repair order has a certain timeline associated with it, that they get 30 days at least to.
I think it's 30 or 60, you might know. There's a
I
timeline.
mean, that's the reality of how long it takes to tear something down.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
and even if we wanted to tear this down today, it would still take us 60 days to get to it probably, just how that works, but.
Right, but from the time that the raise and repair order is issued,
Matches.
I mean, the building could already be gone by the time we meet.
Well,
In theory,
don't properties in the district have to come to the Landmarks Commission?
Yeah, if it's a
before-
historic property, it doesn't get this far before you see it. It would have other things that happen on the first side. This is just a property that is not historic, so you review it at the end. If there is any sort of historic question, they usually come to us ahead of time. And plus, you're seeing the tail end of the inspection enforcement action. They do a lot of work with the property owner
Sure.
at a time before they get to this point. So if there's any historic nature involved, they would already
Yeah, I'm
contact
just trying to
us.
get my head around.
It's basically just the job that we're supposed to look at.
So, for the point of just discussion, when we see a property like this, that, just by looking at the pictures, we have no idea what the problems are with it, is it typically caused by an absentee landlord type of situation? I mean, or I guess with this order, it's raise or repair. So the homeowner, the property owner, has the opportunity to fix whatever generated the report by inspection?
Not in this particular case, but this one is unusual. It's a raise or
Change.
change.
That's the
So,
first time I've seen one of those.
So that's kind of weird.
It is.
They don't have the option to just make it nice?
no, and that's troubling on a personal level, but let me just elaborate here. A raise repair order will typically list all the things that need to be done, like your plumbing is bad, the insulation's rotten, da-da-da. This one does not, so, you know, it doesn't, I have no control over that, that's all I've got. My personal fear, which should be off the record, but it's not, is that in a case like this where something's been rezoned presumably, there's the potential for an abuse of power where a government entity says, well, hey, I don't want houses here anymore, so I'm gonna issue these raise repair orders without elaborating, so as to clear the land.
Especially if you've got a lot of money driving what's gonna be there, who's building there, what industrial thing is.
I think that would be a taking though. I think that'd be a slippery slope. The
Well,
Well, it is a
municipality would have to
slippery slope,
declare
but you
taking.
don't know what's necessarily.
But
I mean,
since
if
the
it
letter
wasn't a bad-
doesn't
Who's
say
shaking
what's
hands?
wrong with it, other than
Was that
unfit
not
for.
an eclipse? The details of the demolition?
This is all that we got. But that could be a clerical issue, that could be staff forgot to attach the thing issue, like, I don't know that we need to look that deeply into
Like,
this.
like you should be able to have that information at this meeting.
Right.
Because that's all, the reason why that raise order's on there.
Mhm.
You know what I mean, would be
Yeah.
something
It
that.
could just be
you
as
have-
simple
You
as-
must not have that many of them, I would think, right?
No,
I've never seen one like this.
I've never seen one. with the
Typically, if something
changes.
is non-conforming after
Right.
12 months, then you can't reestablish that use. It could just be as simple as this has been vacant for over a year, and you can't repair it to be a home because it's not compliant anymore. There's no option for you to apply for a rezoning, there's no option for you to apply for something. It could just be.
And it's more than 50% of the value,
Mhm.
probably?
Yeah, there are a lot of
The
components to
repairs.
why you would have an order like this, but this body's just sort of looking at it going, is there historical integrity? The inspection team deals with all the
Not yet.
garbage. Well, you can't not yet it either, I want to be very clear. You can't say in 50 years that might have historical
I
integrity.
know, but it never will be if it gets torn down, of course, you know.
Well, the integrity
As we
here is
know with,
dubious. I mean, it's got replacement siding.
sure, obviously, yeah, but, you know, I mean, we built a mall downtown, you know. Those buildings were, they weren't historic yet, some of them were, a lot of them were. Anyway.
Well, as you said, we're here to address the historical significance. And if in the extreme this house is torn down, my thought is there is no impact in terms of historical preservation. I'm thinking it is making this a moot point.
Then I think when we review and approve or deny these, then we should stipulate that, you know, it was done on the fact that this only addresses the historic integrity of it, because we have nothing else to go on.
This is not for approval or denial also, this is just for review. So if you think something needs to take action, your recommendation would be for staff to then take action.
Yes.
Okay.
And the ordinance allows you to basically put a hold on something, say that this body is now considering designating a property as historic,
I see.
which, you know, triggers a
Okay,
stop.
so really there isn't an approval from this body on this? Okay. Okay, that,
So do
There's
you need,
action we can take, but
do you need a motion to place this on file then?
yes.
I will make that motion that we place the raise and repair order for 1377 South Street on file.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is staff update.
Interestingly enough.
Interestingly enough. So,
Oh, my.
this is a
Oh, I know where that is.
This is a case study, and we need to discuss this and speak in a hypothetical term. 630 East Walnut has been the subject of many inspections over the last 4 years nearly now.
May I join you at the table? All I can see is the top of the house. It's 2 eyes.
Yes, this is a property on East Walnut. You probably, if you were higher up, you could see it from here. That we have had inspection issues with it for years. The front porch has got some major structural problems on it. There's also, I think, a tree fell into the back.
Yeah, I saw.
So there's tarping on the back of the roof, you can see there. So this actually, the owner, I think, is in Europe, and is in Europe a lot, comes back in frequently. We've gone through every route we can with regards to inspection, so under normal circumstances, this is where inspectors get involved, and they start doing things like, should we make the repairs to the property? Is it bad enough that it can be torn down? My fear with this property is that it will reach a state that the one in Astor did, that we ended up tearing down, and that was in a historic district. This one is not in a district, it's not protected, there's no delineation on it. So if I were to look at staff and say, well, let's fix it to save it, and do like a non-summary nuisance abatement where we notify the owner, you have this many days to fix it, otherwise we're gonna fix it and then put it on the tax rolls, that could be a very costly endeavor for the city to do. And the question is, do we wanna do it on this house when there's no designation on it? You know what I mean, do we want any teeth? And I guess this is a point of discussion for the Landmarks Commission, because you have the demolition by neglect part of the ordinance, which clearly this is.
Right.
If the
I
city
mean-
fixes it, you said it gets put on their tax bill, so it
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily, the actual cost is put on their tax bill?
Mhm.
Doesn't necessarily cost the city anything to do that.
Unless the owner would decide to walk from the property and not pay their taxes.
Sure, and then the
Then it
city
would go to the
inherits the...
county. No, it actually goes, unfortunately, it goes to the county
Oh.
through a tax foreclosure process where we may or may not have the ability to bid on it
Oh,
to
I see.
protect our interests. So it's possible the city could lose their money the way that it's set up. But I think we just wanted to bring this to you for discussion on how much involvement the Landmarks Commission should take on these properties that people just walk from.
We have a bunch of slides after this, but it's probably
What-
Right.
What's the integrity of the inside like?
I'm told by the inspector that the inside is in really nice shape. There's a lot of original characteristics to it.
Until the roof caves in and all the water goes in.
Right.
Right. I think it was used as an, I want to say, marketing or ad agency for a while, a long time ago.
And in 1977, it became a series of different stores.
Yep.
So there are two separate things that we would like to discuss. This property in particular, because it's a problem right now, and then also how we'd like to handle local designations. The HPC did a couple local designations, but they did them incorrectly, so we don't have that many on the register. To have a property be locally designated and not on the state and federal register means that they're guided by our ordinance, and they are eligible for our revolving loan, but they are not eligible for state tax credits. So I can't imagine a lot of property owners themselves are gonna petition to want to be part of it. Some are, because there is some cutesy intrinsic value to like, oh, this is the oldest house in Green Bay, this is where Vince Lombardi used to live, like that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the integrity of a property, these are the things that we have in our code that are listed as what we should be looking for as far as designation. So anybody can apply for the designation based on having one of these criteria. I don't know if we want to go further and say for specific instances, they have to meet 2 of the 6, or, you know, a certain number, or if you just want to look at it piece by piece, that's going to be up to you
And this is
guys.
just for the local designation?
This is just local. Anything that is state or federally listed is automatically listed on our local register. To be local only, you go through this designation process.
And that's something that the property owner has to know?
No,
We can,
I
or
could apply
you
for
can-
something to be designated.
Okay.
Mhm.
And you Is the Landmarks Commission then recommend to council such designation, or if you feel no, then it just ends here?
So this is the only thing that we actually report out to council for. This is the only action that goes to them for approval, so that's another thing to consider.
And to Cheryl's point about legal tools, if it's historically designated, then that demolition by neglect portion very explicitly says that the Landmarks Commission can, if you choose, pursue stabilizing the property and assessing the cost of that against the taxes of that property. But if it's not designated, I don't know, Cheryl, if you have another tool to trigger that, or if it's just,
It would be to convince the council to spend maybe more money than you normally would on non-summary nuisance abatement.
It becomes a hurdle, another hurdle to demolition essentially.
Versus the historical designation, we could spend whatever we feel is needed to stabilize a property. There's no limit on that.
But if
It's
there
just
is a
funds.
building we would consider doing this to, I think it would be this one, because it's a beautiful house. It matches very well with the former glass house right across the street, provides a little pocket right there. I know this house, and I've been watching it very static in the work that's being done, so it's actually very heartening to hear that it looks good on the inside.
Mhm.
I would have
Right.
predicted otherwise.
Well, I don't know when the last time our inspector was inside of it, since the tree fell on the back roof
Right.
section, so.
Okay,
When was that?
I believe it was in the
when he
fall.
was in the fall, it fell, last year.
Do we have any information about, is there any historical information about this?
Yes, Jason's put together.
As a matter of fact.
Oh, okay.
There it is.
There are more slides.
there are more slides.
There are more slides.
I arbitrarily, so to speak, with intent, highlighted some things in green here that would apply to this property. It is associated with historic people in the local sense. It does have distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type, namely Queen Anne. As a ding to its integrity, though, it does not have the original siding, so it's a big ding.
Well, do
But
we know if it's
I
just
don't know if it's
covered
underneath there or
okay.
not. You know, that's.
They put the slate siding on
Yeah.
that side.
And then it is representative, in my opinion, of the notable works of a master architect. So, going down that list, historic people. This was built in 1893 as the home for newlyweds Lawrence Gottfredson and his wife Florence Flora Rahr. Flora Rahr is one of 4 children of brewmeister Henry Rahr Sr., very wealthy. Lawrence Gottfredson, not hurting for money himself. He was in charge of a hardware franchise here in Green Bay. His brother Benjamin founded a very successful automobile company in Detroit/Windsor, the Gottfredson Trucks of Windsor, Ontario. The Canadians are all up and excited about this. Lawrence eventually moved to Detroit in 1926 to assist his brother in that sort of venture, but they all had a lot of money, so this is interesting. In 1903, they get divorced. Lawrence was caught in a hotel banging on his typewriter. Typewriter was a profession at the time. So
You've lined that joke up for days.
it didn't play well.
Oh, brilliant.
So, spectacular divorce. Flora got the property. Nobody wanted each other's money because they had more than they knew what to do with. 1903 to 1905, I don't know. The city directory doesn't have information so much. Since Flora got the property, I think she sat on it. Her parents had built the house where the service station is, right next to it now. In 1891, Henry Rahr Sr. was building his mansion there. He died just before it was finished, but the Rahr family lived on that block, so she kind of moved into that house, which was like the front yard of this house, if you can imagine a bigger house next to it. That was there. 1907, Henry Rahr Jr., the president of the Rahr Brewery, was living at this house. That's significant. I don't know how long before or after he was there. Again, they're all kind of moving back and forth to 702 Monroe next door where the gas station is now. 1918, Samuel and Rhoda Allison, which I misspelled. Well, that's a ding. Allison, but the city directory misspelled it a number of times too. Allison, it bounced back and forth. Samuel was many things, at one point a blacksmith. Great. Moving on, Randall P. Sterling is very important because he was the founder, president, CEO of the Green Bay Business College. And education locally is very much connected to him, although very obscure today. He is locally significant. He died long before his widow, Ika, I don't know, but she stayed in the house up until about 1976 or 77. Beyond 1977, we're kind of in the modern time within the last 50 years. Historically, I can't tell you to care about it, I don't know. At that point, it became a number of stores and real estate offices, whatever it was. So you do have locally significant people. To summarize, Lawrence Godfredson, I don't know that this property is the one that's most associated with him historically because he was only here for a short time and he went on to bigger and better things afterwards. Flora Rahr, the daughter of the brewmeister, don't know. Henry Rahr is significant, but he was there for a short time. Randall Sterling, probably very significant, very much associated with this house. That might be where it's at, especially if he's the family that put the new siding on, that really clinch it. Architecturally, this house built in 1893, it's more of an eye chart than I thought. Almost certainly inspired by, if not the direct product of, George Barber in Knoxville. You have this element is there, this gable and a hip is there, these elements on the side are there. This general floor plan of, Barber like these walkout second story features, whatever, that's there. Barber's the only guy I've seen to employ this goofy bell-shaped tower roof. I haven't looked too deeply, but that seems to be an amalgamation of several Barber elements. Not enough where I can conclusively say that they ordered plans from Mr. Barber, but I would bet they did. And people get giddy about George Barber architecture because it's kind of cool. Green Bay has a number of George Barber homes. Here again, though, the integrity is dinged by the siding and by the work in progress on the balcony and porch and tarps and stuff. But this is a clear connection to a master architect at the time. The demolition by neglect, that's in your preservation ordinance. If it's a designated historic structure, then the city has this legal tool by which, if you, the Landmarks Commission, want, we can figure out how to go onto the property with or without the owner's consent to stabilize it. And we would sort out where to find the money and we would put it on the tax rolls against the property. And all of this can be done without owner consent.
There are public hearings required, so if anyone had any interest in this property, they could come at that time and give their statement.
And I think the purpose in discussing this is to get a sense as to whether or not the group would be willing to take up this conversation formally at a future meeting for this particular house, or if the group as a whole has a general aversion to discussing this without owner request and without it being on the National Register of Historic Places. That's for you to discuss. I know I'm enough of a preservation Nazi to tell you what I think.
Well, and there's another house actually in Astor that's been vacant for a while, that we're not having cooperation from the owner, who I'm concerned with the same types of issues I've been hearing, so. That's actually in the district though, designated. So.
Right.
So that's easier.
I think that's easier to do in the district. This one's not, but I bet there are a number of houses, that
fall
are,
into this category, I think.
well, in Navarino and this downtown
Sure.
area.
I'd be ashamed to see that gone.
It'd be a
Yeah,
horrible shame.
right, yeah, definitely.
So from my perspective, the last property we looked at, I'm looking at that one and saying, the one on Thrush Street, we're gonna raise a house that maybe is too far gone to repair, but it seems like anytime we're taking housing stock out of neighborhoods, it's just gonna be in a vacant lot forever.
Yeah.
That to me seems like something that's kind of inappropriate in today's day and age. But then we look at something like this, it clearly has historical
Yeah.
value to it on a main thoroughfare in the community. I don't think we should sit back as a commission and not act.
I would agree completely.
Yeah.
You at least have to preserve it to the point that you can make a determination. I
Yeah,
mean,
make
that
sure
would be
it's not
irresponsible, I
lost.
think, it was not at least get it to a point where it was stabilized,
Mhm.
and then make a recommendation.
I think this house is exactly one of the purposes of this commission, is to advocate for the preservation of a structure like this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
when
I
it's
thought
appropriate.
exactly,
Right.
we're charged with
Uh,
protecting these properties.
Just to be clear, I don't know that you can take action to stabilize it without first designating it.
Correct.
That's if you would go, this would have to go before council first.
So,
With the
To
okay,
designate
the-
it?
first we'd have.
Right, for a city designation.
And that would be a
then-
recommendation from us.
But you can't do that today, mind you. We have to contact the owner and say that you will hold a public hearing. After that public hearing, no matter how many people yell, scream, whatever, you have the authority to make whatever recommendation you see fit to council, be it designate or let's forget about it. Then it goes to council with a public hearing, and I don't have a read on that playing field at this point, but presumably it gets designated, then it comes back here, and we talk about demolition by neglect and what the city can do to intervene physically to stabilize the process.
So how long does that process take?
The course of 2 meetings.
It's a couple of months.
You know, I think if even, probably a couple of months, but right now, we could go forward with what's called a non-summary nuisance abatement. Get bids on that property, send the owner a notice saying, we're gonna fix this because you haven't. But then I'm flying solo on this because it's probably gonna be more than $25,000, might be bigger. And I don't have any backing from anybody to say, yeah, we should save this house.
Right.
You know, so if I don't get the approval on the council level, and they may say, well, that's just too much money, it's so, you know, some people don't love old houses as much as we do, but that's why I'm thinking, even if this body were to take, you know, some movement to say, we're working on this, we definitely think this has merit, we can start getting
Yeah,
bids
right.
on this at least, so we're not
What's the
pulling up
assessed,
on it.
what's the assessed value?
I think it was assessed at like 198. And when I did a search on it, it didn't appear there were any mortgages.
No.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the status is on that. So, I don't know.
What are the owners like?
I mean, I think the owner is amenable when they're in town. I mean, and they, you know, they of course were going to fix it and they've made the promises, but there's been no follow through.
Absolutely
And they're not in
none.
town very much, they're not in the country
Absolutely
very
none.
much.
I drive by that all the
Right.
time,
Yeah.
and the same blue tarps have been hanging off of that.
Mhm.
Well, this has been solely a weekend project by the owner at the owner's convenience.
Right.
There's been no hired help on this.
It's surprising to have a tree fall on your house last fall and you still haven't done anything?
Mhm.
The total assessed value is 125,000.
Well, it's 125, I was looking at the maybe Van Buren.
So what would be an appropriate action from this commission?
I don't think you can take any action, right?
You can refer to staff or receive and place on file. So if you want to refer to staff to look into taking action, bringing it to our next meeting, so that way at least Cheryl has something to say, they're working on this.
Yeah.
That would be an appropriate action, or you could just receive and place on file, and we can still do that, but I think taking the recommendation of referring to staff to locally designate would give her more backing.
I'll make that motion.
I don't
I'll
think we can
second
do that.
Refer to staff?
There's no action, this is an informational item on the agenda.
I know, we still have to either refer to staff or receive and place on file.
Oh, you take motions on that?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. I'd say go
Lawyers tell
ahead.
me.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yay. I kind of thought you'd say that.
Oh, that's a cool place.
Yes.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that would, yeah.
Yeah, I see it every day.
Right?
I think, Jason, all the opportunities you're gonna have to tell your typewriter joke again.
But I have so many friends.
I'm gonna need some new stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need some new stuff.
Any other information on the staff
Thank you.
update? Any other items? Date of next meeting is Monday, April 8th. If there are no other items, I'd look for a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.